John Mitchell, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
Hey, Meg, thank you for having me. I'm so pleased. I think people are going to find this interesting, and some of them, I dare say, will find it life changing.
And that is exactly why I wanted to have you on the show because we're going to today be talking about sort of the secret to success. I mean, a secret that maybe has been right in front of us, and then you got curious, you went deeper, you found the full secret. I'm purposely making this a little tantalizing because we're not getting into it just yet. We're just letting people know that this is an interview that you're going to want to put on your seatbelts and be ready for. We're going to help you better understand what is the secret to being fully aware and conscious and choice driven about how you want to be in your life. John's going to help us understand that. But before we go into that, I just want to thank all of you for being here and to let you know that a new Star Coach show comes out every Wednesday, either with a fabulous guest like John or a solo show with me. Actually, ironically, John and I connected because he listened to one of my solo shows and reached out to me, and we got to having conversation. We realized that we do some of the same things, and I said, "Would you come on the show and talk about what you do?" And he was gracious enough to say yes. So that's a little bit about that. And with that, I just want to say that if you can take a minute wherever you're listening to hit the subscribe button, whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether you're listening us on all of the platforms that the Star Coach Show is on, if you follow the show, you'll never miss a minute of what comes out. And that's just important to me to help you be informed, because giving you strategies, tools, and resources to be the best coach, the best leader you can be. That's why I do this, and would just love to engage with you through that process. So let's talk about my guest today, John Mitchell. So I'm wondering how many of you have heard about the legendary book, Think and Grow Rich. John and I were talking right before I hit the record button that the book is this gem that's been out there, but I think because it's been out there for so long, you might not be aware of it or think, oh, yeah, I've heard of that, but I've never picked it up and read it. Well, it's sold over and been read by over 150 million people worldwide. And in the book, there's a secret for creating success. But as John will let us know, the book only lets us know halfway, like half of the secret. And then John got curious and said, I want to know the whole secret. So he's going to tell us about what he did to really understand the thing beneath the thing, the secret, the full secret that's being referenced in the book, and then how he put it into action. And not just that, how he can help us put it into action. So this is like it got traction for John. He multiplied his income over 25 times in the concepts of the book, moving from $200,000 a year to 25 times that. So just imagine that. And also how a top business school in the country said, oh yeah, I want you to teach that to our people. And so John's been doing that as well. I'm leaving some details out because I want John to share them. So John, welcome again to the show. And we've got so many important things to talk about.
I know we better
Let's
get going.
we better get going. So we 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 all want to kind of have more clarity about what it is that we can do, what it is that we can think about, how it is that we can really create the kinds of lives that we want. What is your own story towards doing that?
Well, Meg, when I turned 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And I started my career as a CPA and became an entrepreneur when I was 30. And in my 30s and 40s, I was in like seven different businesses. But when I hit 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And I really had two goals in my life. One was to make enough money so I didn't have to work. And the other one was to find the woman of my dreams. And so at 50, unfortunately, I was falling short on both of them. And on the money, like you alluded to, always did pretty well, made 200, 300 grand a year. But at 50, as materialistic as it sounds, I realized to have that exceptional life that I always dreamed of, I had to start netting over $1 million a year. And then on the girl at 50, I had never been married. And of course, I had dated every girl in Dallas at the point of 50, but just couldn't find the right one. And so at 50, I'm like, I'm puzzled as to how to change things. And then it comes to me, I don't know, a month or two after turning 50, go find the top book of the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life. And so, Meg, I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. And so I jump out of
And
bed.
that idea just sort of popped into your brain one day. It just was like,
Yeah.
oh, there might be a resource out there that can help me meet my goal.
Well, God was looking down on me that night and said, I see that you're looking for this answer. Here it is. Go find the top book of the world on success and apply it to your
So
life.
so
And
smart.
I mean, so logical. And so I jump out of bed, I do the research, and to my surprise, I discovered what you mentioned a minute ago, that 150 million people have read this book, Think and Grow Rich, and it's the top book on success by a factor of 10. And so, Meg, when I realized that, I'm like, boy, this is perfect. I mean, I can't believe this is so lined up. And so I go out, I buy the book and read the book, and then I discover the problem. The book, as you mentioned, says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives us half of the secret. It's on the reader to figure out the other half. Well, I'm bummed out and I mope around for probably 2 or 3 weeks. And one day, just get up and go, John, just man up, figure out the damn secret. And so, Meg, I immerse myself in the book. I start reading the book and probably read it 20 times over 2 to 3 months. And ultimately, I figure out the secret and a 12-minute a day technique to apply it. And so I start applying it to a new business I was starting in the reverse mortgage field. And suddenly my income starts doubling and doubling and
Excuse me.
doubling to where 4 years later I was blessed to be making 25 times that 200 to 300 grand a year I've been making the prior 20 years. And of course, I felt so incredibly blessed. But what was really cool, Meg, was I could see why it was happening. I mean, I was just playing the game of life at a higher level. I could do things I couldn't do before, and I had a level of control over my life I'd never experienced before. And I just became fascinated by the fact that you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life and so materially impact your success. And so about 10 years ago, I finally had enough money so I didn't have to work. And I thought, okay, I'm going to share this with the world. And a month or two after I sell my company, I meet the former chancellor and president here at the University of Texas. And I tell him my story, and he says, hey, you got to teach this at the University of Texas, and why don't we teach it together? And then he introduced me to the athletic director who said, I want to learn this 12-minute day technique. And so I teach it to him. And that led to becoming the mental coach for the 18 head coaches here at the University of Texas. And so today I teach my methodology to athletes and students in a course called The Science of Success, The Science of Leveraging Yourself. And I teach it to adults by licensing my methodology to coaches and through my book. So that's basically my story.
Love it. So the name of your book, share with everyone.
The missing secret of the legendary book, Think and Grow Rich.
Beautiful, beautiful. So with that, let's lean into the lessons that you learned. So first of all, you said, the book only gives half the secret. So as you were reading the book and reading the book, what's the first half that came for those people who haven't read the book or who want to better understand what you're laying out here? What was apparent to you from reading the book? What's that first half of the secret that was laid out for you?
Okay. Well, basically, the secret, the half of the secret he gives you is everything starts with a thought. Well, when I read that, I'm like, okay, I buy that, but where do you go with that? And maybe to reveal the full secret, the best way to do it is if you don't mind, I'll tell you the story of how I discovered the secret, and I
Go
think
for it. Yeah.
I think it'll make sense to the audience. So when I was 50, there was a little more going on with me than just feeling the scarcity of time. My mom was dying of pancreatic cancer, and so every day after work, I would go see her, and she was in the hospital for like 8 weeks. So I'd go see her, I'd love on her, hold her hand, and Meg, it was everything I could do to keep from breaking down in front of her. And so what would happen? I'd spend a couple of hours with her. Then I'd go leave, and I'd go in the cold, dark hospital parking lot and cry my eyes out. And I mean, gut wrenching crying for like 30, 45 minutes every single night before I could even drive home. And so, obviously I'm feeling the impending loss of my mom, but I knew that there was something deeper going on because I had never felt this level of excruciating emotional pain night after night. And what I realized was I was felt like I was letting my mom down with my life. My parents gave me everything. They sent me to Jesuit High School there in Dallas. I bet you know where that is, right?
I do. I do. We had some dear friends whose son went there. Yeah.
Right. And then they sent me to the University of Texas, and I didn't have to pay for a thing. And yet night after night I'm sobbing in my car because I just feel like I'm letting my mom down. I mean, she believed in me. She invested in me. But at 50, all I had to show for it was an average life. And I hated the average life. I mean, I hated the average life because I just knew I was capable of so much more. And so, meanwhile, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich every night. And I ultimately realized that the pain I was feeling was like rocket fuel and causing me to go deeper than any other person on the planet ever had to figure out the full secret of Think and Grow Rich. So does that make sense?
Right, right. So instead of allowing, because this comes to the thoughts that we have and the way that we put them into, so instead of allowing that despair to just kind of keep you stuck and dig deeper into despair, you were like, I'm using this as rocket fuel to change, to like, what am I gonna, how can I use this as a motivator instead of a demotivator? Which I want everybody to, we always have choice. So it's like, I don't want this anymore. I want to learn a different way. And you use that to fuel you into deeper discovery.
Well, you're giving me more credit than I deserve because I didn't consciously think that when it was going on. Obviously, I see that now, but I was feeling the pain and kept on reading the book. And
Yeah, but you were feeling the pain and kept reading the book versus feeling the pain and shutting down. So you
right,
might not have consciously made that choice, but you did make that choice.
right, right. Well, and then there was one pivotal night that really changed everything in my life. And like every other night, I spent 45 minutes crying in my car after going and seeing my mom. But Meg, somehow this night felt different. It was snowing, and as you well know, it doesn't snow very often in Dallas.
No. I was like,
And
are you sure you're in Dallas?
right, right. And so as I start to drive home, I see those big snowflakes hitting my windshield, and I get home and I plop myself in my comfy chair and I start reading a few pages of Think and Grow Rich. And again, this is probably the 20th time I've read the book. But this night I read that your success in life comes down to your daily actions. The cumulative effect of your daily actions determine your success in each area of your life. Well, I'm like, okay, I never thought about success in such simple terms, but I certainly buy that. And then, Meg, I read 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. But by now I'm tired and I'm ready to go to bed. And so I wash my face and brush my teeth and get in bed. But Meg, I cannot stop thinking about what I just read, that 95% of my daily actions are unconscious. And then it really hit me. I don't control my daily actions, yet those daily actions are the very thing that is determining my success. And that moment hit me like a bolt of lightning. And I remember, sitting up in bed and I look at in the backyard of my house and see the glistening snowflakes falling. And then I think, well, so what controls my daily actions? Well, hey, if 95% of them are unconscious, then it's my subconscious mind. It's my autopilot. And the subconscious mind is only influenced by repetition. And then I start to realize, all I've been controlling is only my intentions with my conscious mind, not my actions with my subconscious mind. And really, Meg, that's when it all clicked. And I realized, hey, I'm not underperforming because I lacked intelligence or lacked drive. Rather, I was underperforming because of a false belief about success I had had for 50 years. And that false belief was that I controlled my daily actions. And I promise you, virtually everybody listening to this podcast has that very same false belief. They don't control their daily actions. But finally, I was getting my eyes opened to the truth, and I saw that my autopilot and my subconscious mind controlled my daily actions. And without programming, uh, the subconscious mind is innately fear-based and reactive, and it's wired for survival. And that's a problem. And then as all this is coming to me, it's like a surreal moment as I'm watching the snowflakes fall,
Right,
and
right.
I know this is a pivotal moment in my life. Then the full secret of Think and Grow Rich came to me. And here it is. The full secret is what you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. Now, let me say that again. What you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that means, Meg, is you take your life and create immense clarity. Exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And once you do that, then you put it on a template that I created, and 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 then you start, and the template, it makes it so that it only takes 12 minutes a day to read, and then you feed that to yourself, either listening or reading it, and after 21 days, the right actions happen automatically without thinking. And really, three things actually happen from doing this. The first thing you experience is immense control over your life. Well, of course you would. You're feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life. Of course you'd feel control. And then the second thing you feel is confidence, which is a direct result of that control. But you're also feeling way less stressed because the mind thrives on order. And when you're feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself, you're creating immense order in the mind. So, of course, stress goes out the door. And then the third thing you experience is, like I said, the right actions start happening automatically without thinking. And that's the repetition, that feeding that succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day over approximately 21 days then causes the right actions to happen automatically without thinking. And then those upgraded actions actually creates the life you want. It's profoundly simple.
It's profoundly simple, yet not easy. I mean, what's amazing to me is how often people just give their power away, right? So I'll say, like people will be, I don't have time, right? Well, who's managing your calendar? Like
Right.
not just managing your calendar, but like the priorities. If you don't set your priorities in your life, somebody else will set them for you. Would you not say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and Meg, let's face it, most people don't have a way of doing life. I mean, they're just friggin' winging it. And the effect of that is they're wired for survival, and so they're fear-based and reactive. And I see that as a human being, we actually have two fundamental problems we have to overcome. The first one is that we are wired for survival, which innately causes us to be fear-based and reactive. And the second one, again, is that 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. So what happens is that when people wake up each morning, they're on autopilot most of the day, and they're innately wired to be fear-based and reactive, and that and they think about their problems, their recent slights, and so that stimulates that negative inner voice, and that's how they live their life because they don't actually have a way of doing life. They're just getting up, doing the best they can. That's why I think feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself each day and taking 12 minutes a day is so powerful, especially when you look at the science behind it.
Love it. So you've been using yourself as an example. If you don't mind, we're going to continue to use you as an example. Are you good with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, you begin to put the pieces together and you create a template. What were some of the challenges that you had right out of the gate in getting to the clarity that you needed to begin to put this practice into play?
Well, at the time, okay, I'm I'm creating clarity about all aspects of my life. And so I write it all down, and it's a lot of stuff. Way longer than 12 minutes a day. And
Right.
and so as I developed the template, I realized, oh, okay, here's how it needs to work. I'm going to divide my life into the five key areas. And the template actually is 2 pages. On the front is the ideal you in the five key areas of your life: yourself, your health, your romantic relationship, your spirituality, and your career. So, front page is the ideal you. Then on the back page is the improvements you want in each of those areas of your life, as well as your top 3 goals. You'll have a goal for your career, a goal for your health, a goal for your marriage, and you'll define: here's the goal, here's the why behind the goal, here's the 4 or 5 key behaviors associated with your goal, here's how we're going to measure it, and you're basically living your life quarter by quarter. And so that's how the template works. And the latest innovation that really has made so much difference is about a year and a half ago, I created an AI algorithm where if a person just answers 50 questions, then they press a button, and 10 seconds later, my template is customized to their unique life. And this has made it so much easier to apply the methodology. And I really couldn't write my book until I got that component into it. But that's essentially how it works.
And that's all laid out in your book for
Right.
like the AI prompts and the way to kind of or the process.
Well, I make it even easier than that. I just in the book I give them a code to go onto my website and key in the code, and then they have access to the AI algorithm, and they answer 50 questions, and boom, there they go.
Boom, there you go. There you go. So one of the things that I think is so key for people to understand is that to invest in yourself, to invest
Hmm.
in transformation, you need to give it the time at first. So yeah, you get to a place where it's 12 minutes a day, but you had to put in some you had to invest in the clarity for yourself. Now you've created a tool that for us is it's easier for anybody who is really interested in making this kind of transformation. And I've got to say as a side note, like who wouldn't be interested in making this kind of transformation? But that's not my choice to make for you, listener. That's your choice to make for yourself. But point being that it you've got to like clarity isn't just there. Other people have clarity for you. They know what they want you to do or whatever, but it's
Right.
usually to their end. If you really want to create a transformation for yourself, it does take getting clear. So John has this tool that can help you get clear. And it is about like we can either be a ball that's being tossed around by the waves and the waves are sort of deciding where we go, or we can make a decision like what's my path? Am I going to crawl out of the ocean and get into the boat and actually steer my boat, or am I just going to be tossed around by the waves?
Exactly. Well, and let's go just a little deeper. Uh,
Let's.
Here's the science behind this, and I think you'll find this interesting. So here's how the human mind works. Conscious mind sets your intentions and is influenced by logic. Subconscious mind controls your daily actions, or 95% of them, and is only influenced by repetition. And the classic example is, let's say you want to lose weight. Well, conscious mind sets the intention to lose weight based on the logic of the health benefits. Well, the reason people are failing to lose weight oftentimes is not from lack of intention, but from lack of influencing the part of their brain that's controlling their daily actions, more specifically, their eating and their exercising. And so that's why when you feed the succinct articulation of your desired life, which includes the right actions, and you're feeding it every day, um, that's the repetition the subconscious mind needs to accept the programming. And after 21 days, then the right actions happen automatically without thinking. And you're playing the game of life at a whole new level. I'm just, it's amazing how it works. And it's so simple.
So what were you got the clarity. This was obviously you didn't have the benefit of what you've created for everyone else. You were in that pioneer place of figuring it
Right.
out, getting your clarity. What were some of the first things you began to notice when you applied your methodology?
Well, like I said, of course, I saw how this sense of control over my life, which was totally cool. Um, and then so that was the first thing, and then, like I said, the confidence comes because I see, oh, I've got this level of control over my life I'd never had before. And then, like I said, the third thing is that the right actions start happening automatically, but that does not happen immediately because at first the subconscious mind will reject the programming. It will it you gotta sort of grind through it and do it every day. Of course, my attitude is what could be more fun than feeding the desire your desired future life to yourself. I mean, that looks like it's fun to me, but you got to do it every day to send the message to the subconscious mind that this is what we're doing. And so that's essentially how it works. And you mentioned something I think that is interesting, about no judgment on whether people would do this or not. Well, a few years ago, I decided I was going to go take what I created to the top expert in the world on success, whoever he or she might be, and show them what I created, see if there were any flaws in it, see if there were anything similar to it. And so I decide that Darren Hardy is that person. And so, Meg, I write a big check. I fly out to La Jolla, California with my wife, which, by the way, I met my wife 2 years after I started doing this methodology. And so we get to California, and the moment comes to sit down with Darren, and I hand him the template, and he studies it, and I explain how it works, and he goes, "John, this is really good," but he says people aren't going to spend 12 minutes a day on this, and I'm like, Darren, how the heck can that be? It's 25x my income. Time Magazine did a cover story on the science behind it. And we're applying the central concept of the top book in the world on success to people's lives. I mean, what do you mean they're not going to spend 12 minutes
12
a day on it?
minutes.
And he goes, he sort of kicks back in his chair, and he says, John, you're new to the success business. He says, the dirty little secret of the success business is that more success is merely a preference for the vast majority of people, for 98% of the people. And he says, this is only for the 2% that are really driven, where more success is a necessity, not merely a preference. And so, and you'll appreciate this regarding coaching. So, as he told me that, I'm like, oh, I see the problem. I've been thinking everybody's like me, you know. Of course, it makes no sense if we're talking to a bunch of John Mitchells, but you know, that's not most people. And so I'm like, okay, then I'm going to start going after people just like me, where they're entrepreneurs making 200 grand a year, 300 grand a year, want to go to netting 1 million a year. I'm going to find those people. And I started working through EO, which I'm sure you're familiar with. EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. And I find those people, and I make a compelling offer to them. I tell them, if I can't double your income within a year, I'll give you your money back. And typically, what I do is I charge them $20,000 and teach them over 8 weeks. And if you play out the math over 3 years, they get a 35 to 40 to 1 return. And so as I started doing this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to document every success, and I'm going to spend the money to get a film crew, and I'm going to do that. So I do about 10 of them, and it takes me 2 years to do it. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. The smart thing to do, the leverage thing to do, is to license my methodology to coaches, and for me to teach this to coaches. And that was, that combined with the book was then, oh, this is the smart way to do this.
So good. One of the things that you mentioned, and I want to be sure that people hear it, is that the emotion has to be engaged. This can't
Right,
just be an intellectual exercise. This
right.
is a sort of a full body. If your emotions are not engaged, what scientifically, what's the missing piece there if your emotions are not engaged?
Well, as you'll see in the template, and this is interesting. I learned the science behind this from Nick Saban's mental coach. As I started working as a mental coach for the 18 head coaches, I I was telling the athletic director, I'm like, let's make the University of Texas the gold standard for mental training and conditioning. And so I meet the top uh, sports psychologists in the world, and Nick Saban's guy tells me, he says, what you say out loud has 10 times the impact of what you just think. And they applied that at Alabama. And so in my template, you'll see there are certain things that are highlighted that you have the option to figure out what you want to highlight. But whatever is super important, you're going to say that out loud as opposed to just silently reading it.
Oh, so good. So all these things sort of come together. And right before we started recording, you said um, that coaches are working with people who want to get to that level. So this is the thing that I'm paraphrasing here, but the thing you love about the audience that we're talking to is that we tend to be high achievers and we work with people who tend to be high achievers. So as our time together is unfortunately beginning to run out today, John, what do you want to be sure that people who are listening, like, what's the thing that
Right.
you want them to walk away with?
Great. So the most significant thing I ever learned in my life is that 95% of my daily actions are unconscious. And think about the profound ramifications of that. I mean, and maybe I could see it because I learned almost at the same time that your daily actions determine your success. So if that's true and 95% of them are unconscious, it's easy to connect the dots. You got to get control of those unconscious daily actions. And
You
I
got to grow that. Yeah.
and I'll give you something that this is pretty cool. Let's ask Chat GPT right now something about this. And so that so we have a little third party verification of this. I want you to watch this. This is pretty cool if you'll cooperate with me. G, are you there?
Okay.
Hi there, I'm here. What can I do for you today?
So I understand that a person's 95% of a person's daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. Is that really true?
Yes, that's a commonly cited statistic. Research suggests that a large portion of our daily actions and thoughts are driven by unconscious processes. Our brain relies on these automatic behaviors to handle routine tasks efficiently. It's a fascinating aspect of human cognition.
So I understand that what's really going on, and this is important for I think people to understand, is that what happens is you actually take the action unconsciously, and then a microsecond or two later, you become conscious of it. Is that true?
Yes, correct. Unconscious mind often initiates actions, and our conscious mind becomes aware of them shortly afterward. This is supported by neuroscience research showing that decisions can be made in the brain before we become consciously aware of them. It highlights how much of our behavior is driven by subconscious processes.
And so, give us a couple of examples of this.
Sure, one example is when you're driving and suddenly brake because you see a hazard. Your unconscious mind recognizes the danger and initiates the action before you're fully aware of it. Another example is when you catch a ball reflexively. Your body moves to catch it before you consciously decide to do so. These actions illustrate how our unconscious mind guides us in many situations.
Thank you. So Meg, this is the thing I want. This is getting really myopic on this. Um, I think that a lot of people go, well, wait a minute, I'm conscious of every action I take, so none of my daily actions are unconscious. Well, that is wrong. Again, the action happens unconsciously, and because you become aware of it a split second later, you think that you took the action consciously. And I think
Right.
I think this relates to coaches because for a coach, here's the problem, I think. Um, so here's the problem. They tell a client, do this or do that. Well, typically, oftentimes, the client doesn't do what they say to do. Well, the reason is because they are telling the client with their conscious mind, go do this. And so the client has the intention to go do that. But it's just like the losing weight example. Unless they're feeding whatever the coach is telling them to do every day and wiring it into their subconscious mind, they're going to be very haphazard in doing it. And so that's why I think this methodology fixes the biggest problem a coach has. I mean, what do you think? You know, coaches way better than me.
Well, I think you're kind of coming from that element of an athletic coach that tells their athletes what to do. I would also say that a professional coach, one of the reasons why we co-create and that the client is in the driver's seat is because, exactly to your point, if we're just telling them to do something and they're not engaged in it, or it's our agenda for them and not their agenda for themselves. But taking that same thing that you said into how do we then, as a coach, really raise that level of consciousness, evoke that awareness, and get the client buy-in for their own transformation. But then, to your point, it can't be a one and done kind of thing. It's got to be like, how is that then part of their daily conscious routine? Because we do have all these automatic thoughts and automatic behaviors that run under the radar. So yeah, whenever you tell somebody you need to do this, like, okay, yeah, am I really bought into that? That's
But
why coaching invites people into their own transformation.
but it's back to what I was saying earlier, that most people are just winging life. And oftentimes I'll
Yes,
say to people, so how do you create success in your life? Well, they'll stumble around for an answer because nobody's ever actually asked
right.
that question. And the reality is they do not have a way of creating success. And that's why I think that what I try and bring to the success and human achievement field is I see a glaring hole in the in the field, in that everybody is teaching people strategies, and oftentimes brilliant strategies. But people have strategies, great strategies coming out their ears. They need to get great strategies to show up automatically without thinking. And
I
that's
agree 100%.
and that's what this does. And I see my own life experience. This is just working smarter. This is working instead of working harder. This is working smarter, and it gives you an edge. And I found that unless you had an edge, you're going to get the average life. But for something that just takes 12 minutes a day, now there's a lot of work before that 12 minutes. So don't think this is a get rich quick thing.
Right, right. But
But
it's worth it. What's better to invest in than your future in and this is a thing that John teaches at the University of Texas. It's something that would not just, and what I love about this interview, John, and is it's a double bubble, right? It's like you can do this for yourself, coaches, but this is also something that, you've got John's book, you've got the resource to also help your clients raise their awareness and really succeed by shifting that percentage of 95% is on autopilot. Well, what is it that you can consciously do to raise your awareness beyond that? So coaches, you can do this for yourself and you can also do this with your clients. Double bubble.
well, let me adjust something you said, because that's the common belief that you're going to take more of your unconscious and make it conscious. No, it's always going to be 95-5. But what's happening is you're taking control of the unconscious. You follow?
Okay.
You follow that?
Say a little bit more about that.
So the human mind works by 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are going to be unconscious, and 5% are going to be conscious. That will never change.
Okay.
It doesn't change. All we're talking about, by feeding the succinct articulation of your desired life to yourself every day, that's impacting the creation of your thoughts, so that when you're out and you're rewiring your autopilot, so that when you're living your life and those unconscious thoughts and actions happen, then they're the right thoughts and the right actions.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for articulating that. So we're rewiring. It's neuroscience, and we're rewiring. It's still happening on that subconscious level, but the choice and the path that we walk then is different.
Right. And I think you'd find this interesting, and this is the CPA coming out in me, but when I was in my mid 50s and I was blessed to be making 5 million plus a year, I'm like, why is this really happening? What, after 20 years of 200 grand a year, why is this really happening? And so I analyze it and I see that it was a combination really of two things. The first one is I started doing three high performance skills that I'd never done before. And the first one is I was highly organized, meaning I was planning my day the night before and I was time blocking my day. And my attitude is unless you're a 10 on organization, you're not going to be highly successful. And I see that so many people are stuck around a 5 or 6 on a scale of 10 on organization. So I teach them a very simple system with simple forms. So that's the first high performance skill. Second one was this idea of setting aside time to just think 2 times a week, to deep think. This is a habit the top entrepreneurs in the world do, like Elon Musk and Bill Gates. Well, I wasn't setting aside time to think in my 30s and 40s. And then the third thing is I saw that I had become a conduit of learning where I had the wisdom of experts flowing into my head every week, but it was strategic relative to what I wanted to accomplish. And so, of course, all that was articulated in my 12-minute a day technique. And of course, I could do them. I had no trouble doing them. They happened automatically without thinking. Then the other thing that was going on is I would feed to myself 6 things about my career. I'd feed, here's my business plan. Here's my strategy for success. Here's the 2 or 3 things that move the needle. Here's where I want my business to be 3 years from now. Here's the 4 or 5 milestones to get there. And here's the linchpin issue to go to the next level. And keep in mind, when you're feeding this to yourself, you're going deeper and deeper, and you're changing your template as you go down the rabbit hole of understanding yourself, your business, and your life deeper and deeper. And so the reason my income went up by 25 times is the combination of understanding myself and my business deeper and deeper, coupled with doing the right high performance skills. Does that make
Love
sense?
that. It makes perfect sense. I think I could talk to you for days. We do need to, unfortunately, kind of wrap up. So, as we are closing out, if people only walk away with one thought, what's the one thought you want them to be sure that they remember?
I want them to put their head on the pillow tonight and think to themselves, so how does the fact that 95% of my daily actions impact my life? And don't you see that your daily actions are determining your success, and you can't keep on living your life without having control over those unconscious daily actions.
Absolutely. So, so, so good. John Mitchell, thank you for bringing your wisdom, your processes to us. We're going to have links to your book and to learning more about you either below this video if you're watching YouTube, or in the show notes if you're listening to us across the many platforms that the Star Coach Show is on.
Well, and
I
I
just
have something
Go
for
ahead.
you. I have
Yes.
something for your audience.
All
Uh,
right. What do you have for us?
because I am a big fan of you. I created a 9-minute video that explains the secret of Think and Grow Rich, the science behind it. And if people go to themissingsecret.org, themissingsecret.org, they can get that 9-minute video. Of course, it's free. And maybe as a final thing, do I have like 1 more minute to share a final?
Sure, sure. Go for it.
So, a quick story. Um, couple of years, 3 years ago or so, I became a grandfather for the first time, and
Congratulations.
it's cool. Are you a grandmother?
I am not a grandmother yet.
Okay, well, you look too young to be one anyway. But so I become a grandfather, and the day after the baby is born, Ginger and I go over to Hannah's house, and and of course there's a lot of oohing and awing about the baby, but for some reason, Meg, they hand me the baby, and they walk away. So I'm holding this precious 1 day old little girl, and I'm feeling the warmth of her body next to mine, and I start to cry. I mean, I'm like, this life is so precious, and I'm like, she's going to live for 100 years, and the quality of her life and her enjoyment of life and her success in life is going to come down to the quality of the thoughts that are going on in her head most of the time. And I'm like, by God, I'm going to impact those thoughts because her life is so precious. But my message to your audience is your life is precious. Your life is precious. And tonight, again, when you're putting your head on the pillow, just decide if the next 5 years are like the last 5 years, will you be happy with that? And if the answer is no, stop winging life. You now have a way to change it, to create the life you desire. And hey, it only takes 12 minutes a day.
So good. John, thank you again. I think we just came up with the title for the episode, Stop Winging Life.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, just once again, remember that we are all on this earth together to do good work together. So part of that, a lot of that starts with what are you doing and what are you focusing on and what are you doing to build the success you want in life? And the other side of that is how are you connecting with others? And so be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And until next week, this is Meg Rentschler wishing you the very best for your success. Once again, John Mitchell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.